Nice review, Adam. Welcome back to F.A.C.E. I'm giving you control of our television set now, man. And here you go. Looking forward to, it's been a while. Looking forward to speaking to you and seeing what you're thinking in here, Adam. Welcome back to F.A.C.E, buddy.
Hey, Dale, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear, Adam. How are you? Can you hear me?
Turn on the camera too. I'm doing pretty well.
Good, because I have lots of questions for you, because there are a lot of question marks on a lot of these markets, Adam. And I know it's not the beginning of December, but I'm curious how some things are playing out based upon, I know you do seasonal work, what you were expecting. We're at the 10th of December, what you were expecting for the month of December. And let me lead off with, last time we had an interview together, you thought gold might be a great buy towards the end of the year. Did that move begin, or is there still another chance that we could have a big break into the end of the year?
Yeah, that's the one I'm really liking right now. Seasonally, it's very strong in January, February as you get in towards Chinese Lunar New Year, and over again. I mean, that's a consistent, strong seasonal pattern. And last year we saw it creep. It's been creeping a little bit towards the middle of December. I don't know if that's people front running it, or I don't know if that's something else going on, but you take that, you take the break we had on Friday up above the October highs in gold, right, and it all is really coming together. And then you add in the volatility, you add in, the potential for a dovish Fed and maybe some dollar weakness there. And you're looking at, a 7 or 8% rally in gold maybe through January or February from here, and we might already be into the first couple percentage points of that. But there's about 5 or 6 things really lined up for gold at the moment, and so I don't see anything not to like. It's seasonally, like, December historically isn't that strong of a month, but I just think there might be some of that creeping seasonality because people are on it.
Okay, so how about seasonality for the Dixie and Euro that have been range bound? The Euro threatened to break out today out of a little triangle, and cable's dragging it back down. It's still higher. EG looks great. Which way do you think the dollar is going to resolve this sideways pattern that we've been in, feels like forever, Adam?
Yeah, seasonally, December it's a very risk-on kind of month historically. I mean, we all know that. It's a very positive month for equities, not happening right now. It's a very positive month for the euro. It's one of the best months for the euro. That hasn't really been the case the last couple of years, but euro yen is one of the best trades generally in December, and it hasn't come to pass here so far, and we all know the reasons why. And then even the Swiss franc is very strong this month as well. We might see some of that alternatively. So on the counter to that, you have some dollar weakness historically from the Dixie, but it obviously we all know the reasons why it's been so much trouble so far this month. But there is a lot of bearish sentiment out there, a lot of negativity. So
and what, the dollar?
In really everything, yeah. And it's funny how the dollar, so you kind of have it's a bit of the old dollar smile paradigm right now, where you have, the dollar does well in this sort of extreme volatility scenario, this flight to safety. But then when that flattens out, you go back and you look at monetary policy. And well, if the Fed goes to the sidelines, then you have potential for some dollar weakness, especially against the low yielders like the yen, Swiss franc, and the euro.
Yeah. Do you think they're going to blink this month because of what's happened in the S&Ps, Adam?
I mean, it would be humiliation for the Fed not to hike this month just on stocks. Right. I mean, the jobs report was still pretty good. All things considered, unemployment at generational lows. And they sort of signal they're going to, hike and then maybe signal a pause. But I think you have some defiance within the Fed about that. John Williams, the New York Fed president, was very positive about the U.S. economy a couple weeks ago. So, and that kind of roiled markets again. So I think there is a bit of internal strife. But we heard from Powell, we heard from Brainerd on Friday. There was that Wall Street Journal leak, and it seems like the plan right now is to signal something probably not entirely of a pause, but something pause-like along with a hike in December.
So a
And
hike in the language to mitigate any kind of pressure on financial assets
right,
might be the way to go.
I'm curious to see how. I think every every Fed chair gets this sort of challenge where they're pushed one way by markets and had promised to do something else. And markets have a
They'll
very
panic.
they have a
Yeah.
very long winning streak against the Fed when it comes to this kind of scenario. The Fed almost always backs down. I think every Fed chair says, I'm gonna hike anyway. When they kind of come into the job, and then they start to see the market down, and you're getting like pressure from politicians, and you're in the midst of this China trade thing, so maybe you want to see how that resolves itself. And deadline for that is what, the start of March. So I think there's no harm really in waiting a couple months at the very least to hike, and then. But by and large, there's so much negativity out there, but I don't think the data really supports it. I think the market's probably gone too far, but I don't know, maybe I'm too optimistic.
Let me ask you about U.S. dollar yen, because I was selling rallies last week. It worked, but not to the magnitude that I thought it would, with risk off and a huge bond rally. I've kind of moved to the sidelines, and U.S. dollar yen is looking like, if a market doesn't perform like it should, Adam, with a tailwind, I always ask myself, what's going to happen if there's a headwind? So you have a view on this? Could the yen possibly be ready to challenge the old highs up around 114?
Well, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's one of those things that you look at, and the FX market has kind of consistently done this for the last 3 months. You get the equities kicking up all kinds of fuss, commodities teetering a little bit, and the FX market says, you know what? There's not a real big flight to quality, and so why not kind of push the top side though in dollar yen? If everything settles down, I mean, you're still, even on a Fed pause, it's still a pretty good carry trade going there. U.S. economy still looks better than a lot of other economies. I don't know if you saw Japanese GDP overnight. It was pitiful. Missed the mark by a long shot. Terrible business investment, which is forward looking. I mean, this was the third revision on final Q3 GDP. And so there are some real Japanese concerns out there. So I tend to think, though, it's like a lot of these charts we're looking at right now. You've got this kind of narrowing, this indecision, and I want to kind of see which way it's going to go. And for me, that's why I go back to gold. You could kind of camp out there. I think now there's volatility probably isn't going to go down, and get a little bit there while the market sorts itself out.
Okay, so another market that made a spectacular move, and a lot of people are trying to bottom pick this. Any hope for a crude low, or at the best just a bounce, maybe back towards $54 or so, and it's still vulnerable?
Yeah, that's the weekly chart I put up there. I mean, that's bad. That's how many weeks in a row was it? It was about 10 or 12 weeks.
Yeah. It looked like a mini 2008 or something, or 2016.
What a disaster. I think, it comes back to the Iran deal, and people thought that crude was coming out of the market, and then there were waivers on all the sanctions. So I thought OPEC was a little bit constructive. With Alberta take out 300,000 barrels of oil. I think U.S. drillers in the Baker Hughes data on Friday, we saw a little bit of a pullback there. Or we have Mexico talking about ramping up production today, but I mean, I think that's just all talk, because I don't know how much investment you're going to get there as well. But judging oil on the supply-demand dynamics or commentary that you hear is a bad idea in my situation. I mean, if you go back, in my experience, if you go back 2 or 3 months, everyone was talking about $80, $90, $100 oil, and nobody was right. Here we are at $50. And seasonally, it's still weak through year end and into January, and then there's a nice tailwind. So Maybe in January you get the bottom. For sure, you can get a bounce. I mean, if we were talking short term to 50, even 60, I think you almost have to have a bounce to 60 to make it look like a reasonable market. Otherwise, you're going down. It looks straight down if you can't get a bounce from here. So you got to be worried if you're any kind of crude oil bull. And I don't want to extrapolate it to a signal about global growth just yet. I think China, even if we get a bigger trade war, will be stimulative. I think I could see that situation where the U.S. even grows into a greater deficit, and some other countries as well. So, I don't think the demand story. I really believe that demand is falling, and production, while it's higher in the U.S., it is falling in some places.
What about the soap opera in the UK, Adam? Any thoughts about it? Huh?
I'll pull it up.
Okay.
I mean, I try to stay humble because I've mostly been wrong about it. I think, my base case is that there was to be some sense and sensibility, and someone would come to an understanding. I mean, I was over there 3 weeks ago for the Finance Magnets London Summit, and just that there's just so much anger. And, the politicians are really self-serving. I think everybody in the Conservative Party, like, it's not even a political party anymore. It's just a bunch of people trying to stab Theresa May in the back and become prime minister for what? I don't know, some dream that they can get a better deal. And I would have thought by this point they would have said, okay, we'll accept some of this, we'll move forward, this isn't everything that we promised, but this politics, you always overpromise and try to deliver something. And we're just at this point now where nothing can get done. Today is obviously a huge setback. I mean, Theresa May realized she didn't have the votes. So I thought maybe she could find some labor votes and get it done, but I think they just see which way the wind is blowing and pile on. But you just can't navigate. You can't even envision a way out of this for anyone. I mean, if the EU digs in, they dig in. You can't have a no-deal Brexit. And I think some of that's priced in. So it's obviously depressed. Sterling is a buy at some point, but how much do you want to get beaten up while you wait? And technically, we're at new lows here now. So this could easily turn into a disaster for Theresa May, a disaster for the Conservatives, a looming deadline, the EU not giving any more. It's a conundrum with the Irish border. So, and then the media is vile in the UK, making, it's just angry and mean. And so until I think someone says, all right, enough of this, like, let's take the deal we have and move on, then you're in for 2,000 pips in cable, but it's untradeable right now.
Okay, there you go. So yeah, I mean, sometimes the right trade is no trade. I've been no trade in cable for a while. Was hoping, and look, I came in with morning commentary about waiting for the Brexit vote, and then the F.A.C.E attendees notified me, or I noticed after I was through talking about it, that it was put off again. So anything on your home currency on Canada that is grabbing your attention? Decent volatility continues in there. It's kind of like one of the majors that seems to react quite strongly in both directions, and wondering if you still think the trend is up in USD CAD.
Yeah, I like the Canadian dollar around here. I mean, that jobs report on Friday was possibly the best jobs report from Canada of all time. I mean, it was just a ridiculous number. For sure, everyone is expecting some of that to be given back. But I mean, if not for a change in participation rate, which is good, you would have had the unemployment rate fall by 4 ticks in a single month. And it was so widespread, and there was just a lot going on there. One of the part of the thinking is that there were a lot of cannabis-created jobs because Canada legalized cannabis at the end of October. So you might have had a lot of hiring in November, and that could have skewed some of the data. But in theory, you would also think that would have brought people in who might not have been working as well, which is what we saw in some of the numbers. The Bank of Canada, it's such a black eye because literally the 2 days before the report, they're talking about going onto the sidelines after they've been hawkish for so long, and then you get dollar CAD jumping up and then right back down. OPEC probably didn't do any favors in the near term with 51, but I think you're really going to be tied to oil for the next little bit. There's so much uncertainty about investment. I think in certain ranges, oil doesn't matter that much for CAD because the money's getting spent. There's production growth, but when you hit below these certain thresholds, probably 55, 57, and then you have the spread with Canadian oil, that's when companies start pulling back, and we're at that situation now. Until oil gets above $60, I don't think you can really buy the Canadian dollar, but it's not that bad of a place to camp out. Seasonally, it's a good time of year for the commodity currencies. Canadian dollar, especially the Kiwi dollar, has a real December kick to it. I don't know what the flows are on that. The last dairy auction was good after, I think, about a dozen in a row, terrible ones. So
it's been displaying some very good relative strength while the dollar was, making new highs. Aussie was too until the GDP number, and Aussie Kiwi seems to have broken down out of a long-term formation. So do you think that Kiwi will continue to outperform Aussie during this time frame?
It has a lot of things going for it. I mean, if you're a little bit more optimistic about growth trade and the technicals do look good, there's a seasonal pattern behind it. If you can manage the risk around it, even something like Aussie Kiwi or CAD Kiwi, if you really love your broker, because that's a wide spread.
Right.
But there are some things to like about the New Zealand dollar. You don't have as much hard commodity exposure. And I think a lot of the negativity in the softs is not going to get a lot worse.
Okay, well, you bring up the legalization of cannabis in Canada. Any chance that Trudeau and Trump will get together and share a doobie for the holidays and kind of make
all
peace?
Get together. We get Xi in there. We could get just the whole works of them and get everybody on the same page. I mean. You take a step back, there's just a lot of anger in the air, and I don't know what it is, because there are jobs out there. There are, outside of.
Well, what worries me is if there's anger now.
Yeah.
And the economy is still, chugging along. I mean, we're not in recession. What are the emotions on the streets going to be like when a recession finally hits? And that's pretty worrisome to me. So it makes me start to think as we head towards the end of the year. And I'm going to ask you for a Nostra button. What are you looking forward to in 2019 that may offer, a great position type trade for 2019? That's going to either underperform, a great short, a great long? Are you starting to look ahead, or just a day at a time? Anything you see going into next year that you want to at least be monitoring for potential buys and sells?
Yeah, I think it's one of those markets. Politics are dominating, but if you want to put me on the spot, I'm not afraid to call it. I think oil is the one that is. There's a lot of negativity right now. I think oil equities, if you want to get a bit more specific, are way beaten down. They'll probably get beat down a little more into year end. And that's somewhere that I think looks pretty good. And that probably translates into some bit of Canadian dollar strength. It'll be a bit of a homer for next year. And I guess ultimately, if you take the whole of 2019, and I don't know what the timeline is on this, cable has got to get higher. I mean, it's so beaten down. There's going to be, somebody's got to come to their sense at some point. And I don't know if that means it gets down to parity or something first, because every time I think they can't get stupider and it can't get worse, it'll get better. And then I think the euro as well. It's not so bad. If the Fed goes onto the hot sidelines, I think that's probably a bit of dollar weakness. I don't see a lot of dollar strength, is how I would put it.
Okay. Expectations for ECB this week, Adam? Are they going to stick to the plan of beginning to end QE? Yeah.
Well, the question is, does the ECB have to change course? Like, I think the QE is, it's done. you got these signals about forward guidance about when they're going to hike in the summer of next year. Now, do they have to climb down from that now? Because that's always the playbook for the ECB. Or are they going to signal this? It would be really helpful if they would signal things ahead of time, but they always want to wait until the last moment to do that. So I think they're going to come across as a bit, they'll be concerned about the economy because in all the commentary they have been saying there are worries that the economy has underperformed, but at the same time they're going to say, listen, we think it's still going to be strong. I don't think they want to be in negative territory forever, so they're going to signal, we think it'll be a little bit better. And I think the euro is probably going to get a bit of a tailwind from that. You can see how it's holding in there now. Alternatively, you would probably argue that all the best trades right now are technical.
Great point.
You just have to manage risk through this because the headlines are out there. It changes day to day, and if the euro breaks down, you sell it. That's it. I don't think the ECB even has to factor in.
And you think that Italy the worries about Italy, which have begun to fade, and the yields on their debt, that it won't be a problem? Or is there a possibility that another country pops up as a problem for the ECB next year, like maybe something even bigger than Italy, like France? There's a kind of a lot of turmoil on the streets. I wouldn't want to be walking by the Eiffel Tower right now without a bodyguard. How about you?
Anger, right? Like we're in this bull market in anger. And you're right, we're probably even at a low ebb in that bull market in anger. So what do you buy when people are angry?
Guns.
Gold and guns.
All right, let's wrap it with Bitcoin. They say buy when blood is on the street. Well, this has been a total hemorrhage. So there's plenty of blood on the street. Do you think we're getting close to a level? I know there's not a lot of price history, and some guys are trying to use technical analysis, Elliott wave, different methodologies for trying to call some type of low in Bitcoin. I've heard, 2,800, 2,500, 1,000, and it's hard to value. And again, I think you just have to rely on the charts. What do you think?
There's something around 2,900 there on my chart that looks a little bit better. It looks like there's some support there. That said, you have to have some kind of bait. A company will only fall as far as as its dividends or its assets. And
right.
Something like Bitcoin, you have to have someone believing in it. And even when you read amongst the bulls, like there's so much fragmentation now within the crypto space. You have a lot of the true believers have really switched into other instruments that are more dynamic, that better governance, better utility, and they're working on those projects, blockchain projects. So there was such a the disgusting part of humanity is you have these great technological innovations, then it gets flooded by salesmen and scam artists, and it's just turned regular people off of anything to do in crypto. So until you prove some utility, you have to sell the rallies, and whether you can get a bounce up to 5,000, even 6,000 to sell, even sell from here. I don't see any reason.
It's going to take some sponsorship. SEC keeps turning down ETFs, so until they give people a product, and there is one. It's a Bitcoin Trust, GBTC, I believe. It's like the only one.
Yeah, I just don't see regulators. I don't see it. I'd be shocked, and it would be bullish if we could get an ETF, a real ETF.
Yeah.
But even in the futures, the volume's not great anymore. There's a lot of work going into the stable coins, but I just
it's a no touch.
Always darkest before dawn, and
I think there's probably from the level you mentioned some type of reflex rally, because I've noticed that sometimes bubbles, when they pop, just the sound of the pop, the bigger the bubble, the louder the pop, that at times there could be something called an echo bubble, where it echoes what happened maybe to a smaller degree. So we'll see what happens around 2,800. But I'd like to wish you and your family and all your associates at Forex Live a very Merry Christmas, Adam, and a Happy New Year and much
Greg
success.
sends the same. Greg was just telling me to say hello to Greg. Wish him a Merry Christmas. So,
okay, thank you very. All right, well, thanks so much. And like the snowflakes in Canada, I hope pips rain down on you and everyone that hears your words, buddy.
You selling everything Canadian. If you look out my window right now, there's a lot of
a lot of that white stuff out there. So are your children old enough to go out and build a snowman with you?
Hell yeah.
One of them?
Okay. We're 1 and 2 years old, so I'm doing the labor, but they enjoy it.
Okay. So. Are you sleeping yet?
Buddy, I had a good sleep last night, so one day.
All right. Thank you so much, Adam Button. You could follow Adam at Forex Live or on Twitter at FX_Button. Adam has a great rep for being one of the best news traders out there. Greg is a great technician. Very good team at Forex Live. Thanks for taking time out of your day, my trading warrior brother.
All the best, Greg. In 2019, we're going to have a lot on what's coming up next year in the next few weeks at Forex Live. So, but right now it's a day at a time, and we'll see where the next headline's coming from. If you want to know why markets are moving, forexlive.com. So. We're usually 24 hours a day, ready to roll.
All right, buddy. Thank you, Adam. Great talking to you, my friend.
All right.
Really happy holidays to you and everyone.
You too. You too.
Thank you, Adam. Adam Button, everybody. That's a wrap for Monday. We'll see what happens on Turnaround Tuesday. I'll try and listen to the news before I start talking about a Brexit vote again, since I can't count on anything happening the next day. You're welcome, Marius and Hammett and everybody. Have a great day. See you in private chat with Blake and the boys, and enjoy the rest of your day. Good hunting. And remember, most of all, don't just count your pips, count your blessings. We'll see everyone tomorrow. Thanks, Dad.